I'm good. What? Ronnie, Ben.
I'm sure some of them.
That's something. I think that's
Hopefully, if we don't lose you, I do, we'll try to hold it right back. We've already had we got a couple of presentations here. So anyhow, we will send you more. Okay, we're on TV, I keep forgetting. Well, just wait a minute. All right. Okay, well, we got you here, and we'll let you know when we're going about to vote, okay? All right, thanks, sir. All right, call us back into order after a short recess. Next thing we have is attaining high student achievement and success, Google Classroom. I believe that's Mr. Shipman.
Right, and as Ronnie comes up, you can come on up, Ronnie. Just to kind of give you the relevance for why Ronnie is here. I know a lot of the board members, if you're like me, you've heard a lot about online platforms, even if your children are in our school, and from parents and community members about how our children are learning. And so I thought it would be appropriate, since we have a lot of online learning taking place, that Mr. Shipman's trying to kind of give you an overview of what that looks like for us in Monroe County, and hopefully give you a little better insight on what our children and our teachers are doing every day in the classroom. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Shipman. Is that you, Mr. Shipman?
Yeah,
That emoji?
it is.
Okay. It looks like me.
I think that's more of a caricature.
I put, because of the length of it, it's going to be on your screen.
It's only about 57 slides. We won't go through all 57. I just kind of want to showcase what my teachers are doing.
He just said something I think is a key to why you can so successful. He takes ownership of the teachers and the work they do, just like every administrator does. I think that's one of the keys to why we're so successful.
Agreed.
He didn't know like he said.
No, they want to make sure he's happy too. I know they always send him texts and emails to let him know that they have mastered a certain app or program, and kind of show off what they've done with the kids or parents. I'm doing this other one, Ronnie, so I'll just keep up with you.
Yes, sir. So Google Classroom is our 7th year doing it since we started going to Google. Some teachers have been more in depth of doing it than others. We just haven't seen the importance of this new pandemic going on. This last spring, everybody had to take ownership. This year is the first year we've had it kind of mandatory for all Monroe County teachers to have Google Classrooms. So we've got Google Classrooms pre-K all the way to 12th grade. And this is including administrators also. Teachers actually are students in Google Classrooms. I have a Google Classroom that every one of the teachers are a member of. And I send out stuff to all the teachers. Administrators use Google Classroom for teachers turn in lesson plans. So they actually turn in information like a student. So it kind of helps them on both ends. So basically what Google Classroom is it's a digital link to learning at school, at home, or on the go. Teachers use it for assignments, homework, newsletters, and much more. We're going to kind of get into a little bit of Google Classroom to kind of show you what it looks like. Each child is provided with a secure login that they'll log in to get anything Google. We supply that to them. They'll check with their teacher to get all that type of information. Parents can actually receive summaries of Google Classroom. There's a misconception amongst parents thinking they can join a Google Classroom. That's not necessarily true. They can be invited to a classroom, but they can't get assignments like a student would. They only get summaries of that. So if they have a Google account, they can get summaries every single day. If they don't have a Google account, they get summaries once a week. So it's also a communication tool with the parents. So the parents can keep up exactly what's going on in the classroom. It's just basically a shortened summary of what's going on in the classroom. To get started, they would go to classroom.google.com. Once they get there, it shows up every classroom they have inside of it. So if they had some of them's got 5 classrooms, some of them's got 6 classrooms. Some teachers have a classroom for every subject that they teach or for every class period they teach. So they would show up for them in their Google Classroom. This is kind of what it looks like when you get in. You can tell I've been around the little kids quite a bit. The 3 little lines that you see here, the kids call that the pancakes. And the dots over here, the 9 squares, they call that the waffle. So the little kids, they understand that as the pancakes and the waffle. They tie anything in food, apparently. So this is where they go to get anything that's in their stream, so teachers can send out announcements to the students. Say this is going to be due tomorrow, picture day tomorrow, whatever. There's also a classwork page, which is the next one. This is where they put things in that's going to be turned back in to the teacher. So it basically creates a folder for every assignment that the teachers assign to the students. And with that, the students turn it in and it keeps organized. You know, you see in the classrooms where the teacher would have a basket, and if you're in first period, you turn it in this basket. Well, it's kind of an online version of that. That's what this is. So it can be accessed at any time, anywhere, on any device. So that's another good feature of it. One thing that I wanted to showcase my teachers about is we've had several teachers in the news for a good thing.
Always good, right?
For future reference, there's a video if you want to watch it, and there's actually video tutorials. This is what's in my classroom for the teachers. Step-by-step video tutorials of how to work things in Google Classroom. I gave them Bitmoji classrooms. Some of them have taken Bitmoji classrooms and just taken these things to a whole different arena. We've had several teachers that have signed up and introduced their Google Bitmoji classrooms, and we're in the Atlanta paper for that. So I'm going to give you a few. This is Coach Hamlin and Miss Cox, Physical Education, over at Hubbard Elementary. So he's got it divided up, the cones, K through 5. So if you're kindergarten, you click on the kindergarten cone.
His Bitmoji, his body's bigger than that.
I didn't say it.
He's a big dude.
But he has the activity log. So when they click on the activity log, it takes them to a Google form, and it kind of tells the teacher what they've done for that day. They can log everything through a Google form. I just put all their stuff. So you can see he spent quite a bit of time. He's given an activities form, gym time, health and literacy, all kinds. All kinds of things in here. Deck of cards, fitness, ideas that they can do at home if need be. This is Miss Lee and Miss Pippin from MCAC. They've got all their books online for the students, so they don't have to go in and actually go try to find the books anywhere. It's just a resource for the students, a one-stop shop for them. Here's Miss Whitten at TGS. She uses this for music, so she has a music room. A lot of these are links to certain websites, so they can click on different things and it takes them. For example, this one here takes you to a music maker. You can click on the instruments and they'll make actually music for the instruments. So these are all Bitmoji classrooms for them. One thing that we tried to get the teachers to do was try to create something that you introduce yourself. In case we weren't face-to-face on the first day of school, we wanted a way for teachers to introduce themselves to the students just in case. Or when new students come in, we wanted them. So some teachers have done Flipgrids, some have done videos and put them in their Google Classroom for students to look at. This is Miss Walker over MCMS. You can see if you want to email Miss Walker, you click on the little laptop, it takes you to her email address. If you want online expectations, you click on the online expectations and it shows you what her online expectations are. So these are her online expectations. For Google Meets, these are her online expectations for Zoom. And with hers, she's put directions on how to do everything that they use in their classroom and the links to them also.
MobiMax is another program that we use.
So all this stuff that we pushed out, and the teachers do a great job of using it. Mr. Carr's class at KBS looks just like him. So he's put all his stuff in here. This is just as much for the parents. See, with Google Classroom being locked to the students, this is a good way to communicate with your parents also. Our teachers have been over and beyond to communicate with the parents this year and every year, but this year's just been more of a challenge. So we had to get creative about communication and make sure we get everything out that we needed to get out. This is Miss Morgan at the high school. She does a little bit differently. She puts all of her stuff on her Google, on her Bitmoji Classroom, and then she turns in all her work to the Google Classroom. So she has her own interactive board here, and her assignments are here.
And that's our standards-based expectations. She puts them on the front. I like that.
She has everything on the front of her Bitmoji Classroom, so they know exactly where they're going. That way the parents have access to it also, you can see exactly what's going on. So, this is Miss Fields. She's a SPED teacher and 504 coordinator, SST coordinator. So she's got links to try to help her students get to things a little bit easier. We also have a program called Clever that they use also. But I wanted to highlight some of the Bitmoji classrooms that kind of ties in with Google Classroom, because we've had a good time creating our Bitmojis and using them this year. Any questions that I can help you with?
What is it, question just to talk a little bit about training teachers, like our new teachers. Like, can you talk to them a little bit how we did a little different with our new teachers coming in this year because of knowing that they're going to have more of a technology load?
Well, with the teachers this year, I have gone out to every school system during pre-planning, and we've met with all the new teachers, and then we met with the group of teachers also trying to get some things out. I just had a training today at TG Scott on Google Meets, another training on Google Meets because there's some new features that just came out. So I'm working my way to all the schools. My bookings have not changed. They've actually picked up quite a bit from previous years. So there may be more online bookings as far as I may use Google Meets to do some things that we can't have in we can't have the big trainings that we used to have. Not big trainings. So but most of the time I'm going to their planning periods and meeting with teachers on planning periods and trying to get people in.
I think really, anyway, I think many people out in the community that do work from home by computer and it's database, spreadsheet, all this kind of just boring stuff like that, maybe have a misconception of what educational opportunities, how exciting they can be for students. Because that's colorful, that's interesting, that draws their attention in. And our teachers done a great job. I wish the community as a whole to really understand. So Diane writes it up really well.
Put one of those Bitmoji classrooms in the paper. How about that?
They have,
Don't get the one about Coach Hamlin.
But I mean, that's really, a lot of people said, I cannot students stand to sit in front of computers that much.
I mean, you've got teachers that are doing Google Classrooms, they're doing Bitmoji classrooms, they're recording their lessons using Screencastify, they're recording their lessons using Google Meet. I mean, they're really, some of them are out of their comfort zone, but doing a great job
They
with
do a
it.
great job. I listen to it at all school levels.
They're rising to the occasion.
And I think one thing to keep in mind is you're going to have, even though our professional learning is driving everyone to learn more and be better and be successful, just like our children, some of our staff are at different places. And so we're trying to move them from A to B to C to D. And so we've got some teachers that have been here from the onset of Google and probably a bit more advanced. And so we're having to, Ronnie's really having to, principals having to up that and make sure that they're doing the things that some of the other teachers are able to offer electronically. Because if you don't, if the parent will say, well, this teacher is doing this particular activity or application. And so a lot of pressure on some of the new teachers. And they really work hard to try to, I don't think we've mastered it. We're trying to do better every day. I mean, there's so many new things that come out, like, I'm sure in 5 years, Google Classroom will be a relic. I mean, it really will. But right now, we're challenged each day to try to provide that cutting edge to the kids and the parents that.
What we have is our mission: learn, grow, succeed. That applies to everybody, not just students.
Well, it's not just our new teachers. I mean, you've got teachers from other systems coming in that may have been a Microsoft district, so you're taking something and trying to teach them something great. They're basically a first-year teacher too.
And some of our teachers that came in, they did something else in the district before, so they've done really well. And that's one of the things I tell the new teachers every year. I mean, the ability for us to be successful leans a lot on them, because the teachers that we had before, they want to do at least what they did the year before, and we know they do better. The teachers that left, the gap that we fill in with our new teachers, the ability for them to meet the needs of our kids really says a lot whether we're going to be successful or not. And so it's important that we get them up to speed quickly. That's why we do TIP, best practices before school starts, the pre-planning, all that's geared toward, and Alicia's going to speak to that later, because it's a lot of pressure nowadays on that first day for kids to be ready to go, and for everybody to be, because we're using the same basic standards, curriculum units, and so, but we do provide support, but it's a lot. It's a lot.
I was wondering, it's been a long time since I took an education course, but how much, nowadays, in some of them, how much emphasis does teacher training, teacher education have to do with online, what we're doing? Or is it basically been for our new teachers, on-the-job training?
A lot of that is on-the-job training, and depending on what school you do your student teaching with. So if you go and do your teaching at a district that is doing Microsoft, and then you go and teach a district doing Google, you may have zero experience with Google, or vice versa.
And another thing, the more and more, you see more and more professions that are working virtual. Now, yes, this is taking away the social aspect, but it's got to help students to get out of high school, or go to vocational school, or go to college, to already know how to work virtually. It's got, and I know it's not ideal for school, but it is teaching them something. There's a good chance they may be using it in the future.
Good job, John.
Thank you. Any other questions, board members?
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we Next, we're going to call Mr. Johnson.
Yes, we got Mr. Johnston from Principal at Hubbard, and Mr. Daniel, our Assistant Superintendent, to talk to you about proposal for Hubbard Pavilions. I sent an email to the board members today, giving you kind of a heads up on this project, and obviously time is of essence, especially when you're getting it donated. So we wanted to go ahead and get this in front of you as soon as we could.
Just real briefly, I was first contacted by Mr. Johnston and then by an officer from the Hubbard PTA to talk to me about a proposal to build some pavilions on the Hubbard campuses. And so talked back to Mr. Johnston, had several conversations with the PTA officer, and basically we're looking at materials and labor that will be donated to build two very large permanent structures on the Hubbard campus. So we've tasked Mr. Johnston to work on location, and then the obligation will be the school will take over maintenance once they are built. So we're bringing this to you because this is a permanent fixture, a permanent change to the campus. And so even though it's being donated, this is a significant change. So Mr. Johnston's going to brief you on the things that he's worked with the PTA and the uses that will help at the school. So.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. See, as he said, PTA officers come to me, I guess a little less than 2 months ago with the idea, after school got started back and what we have kind of done with lunch, give an opportunity for students to go outside and eat, to kind of spread out that way we're not overcrowding the cafeteria. But they come to me with the idea about building basically started out with the idea of picnic pavilions. I was talking about gazebos and things along those lines. So, through that discussion and begin with, I'm thinking, we may not be in this COVID thing forever, but always look at opportunities for what are other uses and, making it a multi-use type facility. So we kind of evolved to, having actual pavilions, stick-built type pavilions built. And they said they could come up with the money, the donations, and the manpower to be able to build on campus. The picture that you see here is just an example. It will be a stick-built structure. The posts will be 6 by 6, all pressure-treated lumber. There will be 12 posts for each pavilion. They're 24 by 24 that will be built on a 4-inch concrete slab. So they will be really nice, big cables such as this. The posts will be on 8-foot centers. That was something I kind of talked with them about. I wanted to be a little more structurally sound, and I think the picture probably is, but I wanted to get a little stylish than what you see here. But anyway, the multi-use, aspect of it is where we kind of really evolved from. Our field days, fall festivals that we've had in the past, just being able to have somewhere for people to, sit down and eat, get out of sun, because field days, and we have them in May, and some of our parents and grandparents that come, being able to get out of the sun out there has been incredible. But there's a lot of different things we use it for just during the school day. It can also serve as an outdoor classroom type area where teachers can take students to sit down, whether it's reading time or whatnot, just be spread out and get outside of the building. And that's something that I've always been a big really push teachers to do all my career, and getting kids outside, get them into the environment that you're talking about. So I think that would help us, there as well, along with our PBIS incentives. There's a lot of different incentives that we, do for classrooms and students alike, whether it's, an ice cream social type thing, if they've earned it through their PBIS points and so forth, but somewhere to be able to go and enjoy those things. So that's kind of where we were at with it.
Jerry, just so that everybody, the bottom picture you see up there, this is behind Hubbard Elementary. There's a fixed in here that we fixed in just this past year that includes their playground, and it's a vast amount of area for kids to play, and that's what's in this picture. And what is represented, if you see right there is the playground. And so I'm assuming, Mr. Johnston, these are the areas that you're looking out for, those pavilions. And that's where they would be located. The 3 you see there.
The three orange little blobs that you see along those lines, that's where the fence is actually at now. Google Earth and Google Maps, they're several years behind, so the fence and even the playground has been updated since the Google Earth picture that you're looking at.
And we do have gates, we got a gate down there by that one that we're gonna build down on that far end, right?
Yes, sir, that's what the little orange, I guess rectangles, where they are. The one at the bottom left is the service entrance, is a double gate there. The one in the middle, right beside the first, that one there, is just regular 4-foot gate, and then a 4-foot gate up on the other end as well. And that was basically the idea between, to select those two areas, to have them by those two gates. We normally set up when we have field days and any kind of concessions with, for fall festivals and stuff, right at that upper right-hand corner one. So we kind of spread them out just a little bit, but have one at each of the two student gates that are going on to the program.
Maybe, one last question, as far as, utilities, is going to have power?
We talk about it when we do have city, and this is where it gets, I guess, a little different, because we're the only school that's on Southern Rivers, but city serves the campus up here on the old middle school campus. And we have city power just to the right of the one at the top. There's a pole, if the shadow is showing up there, you can see a pole. City's got power run there, and that's the power we use when we have field days and fall festivals. So the power already run to that point. So if we need to run power to them,
I was just thinking about it, fall setting, we just have lights out there, so.
exactly.
Do you anticipate them being just open pavilions? Do you anticipate putting chairs, picnic tables out there on pretty much a permanent basis, or just move them out when you want them?
What I envision is the molded top picnic tables.
Right.
I think we can put 4 in each one, and we could really get 2 classes under each one at a time, once we get away from social distancing type stuff.
And how do you fund those? Will those be PTA or
Yes, ma'am.
or
PTA.
PTA will also
We will.
furnish the table?
Yes, ma'am.
That's very good. Appreciate that.
I really like this because the whole business about being in shade is so important. I had a recess student too many years. No shade.
Are you gonna use the Humboldt cone we discussed?
Oh, yes, we are.
So we're thinking about like the burgundy, that is the Humboldt color, they maybe use the cover, then they're gonna do a metal type style roof.
It might be better with a 20-year paint warranty.
Right?
Sounds good.
So we just need
Again, because it's a permanent fixture, and because we're partnering with the PTA and with the school, because they'll have some obligations once they're built, we wanted to recommend to you that you approve these additions to the campus.
And I make that motion.
And I second it.
All right, we got a motion and a second. A motion by Mr. Pettigrew, second by Dr. Gloucester. All in favor, signify by raising your hand. And Mr. Evans, is that okay with you? Mr. Evans? Okay, I didn't. I heard you, but I don't think everybody else did. We're good then. All right, we voted unanimous, including Mr. Evans.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Thank you.
Thanks to the PTA. I let them know.
Well, and they've got some donors behind the scenes on that too, so at some point we'll need
I
to.
mean, we're looking at, I don't know exactly how much, but it's headed toward.
It's going to be 1,000.
Whoa.
I mean, these are substantial.
You gonna have a plaque or something for donors' names, or?
They haven't asked for that yet, but that's been in my mind to do once we get it.
At least say nothing about PTA.
Yes,
Yes.
that's beautiful. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank y'all.
Okay, we're going to move on and talk about some vehicles now, and just a little introductory information on
Just
this.
that's in your notebook as well, guys. Under SO's, under organizational effectiveness, you have a recommendation, and behind that recommendation is a sheet that goes over what Jackson's going to talk to you about.
So we're going to talk about white fleet first. So white fleet are our maintenance vehicles, our school-level vehicles, even some vehicles that are tied to the board office, a couple of vans that technology uses on rainy days when we have to move things around this bird. With the family resource work that she does, uses a van. And so we have 19 vehicles in our white fleet. Currently, 15 are operational, which means 4 are not. Either for age and mechanical purposes, they've been deemed that they would cost too much to repair. We've got one service truck that would need an engine, and honestly, it is a 2005, and it just doesn't make sense to put a new engine in that vehicle. So, Mr. Onstott here's from the operational side of the white fleet. Mr. Davis, Mr. Campbell from the bus shop and transportation here from the maintenance side on the white fleet. So I asked them to spend some time thinking through replacement and to do a long-term plan on white fleet. In my tenure here back in 2007, Mr. Cowart approved in our first E-Splosh to buy a fleet of Ford Rangers, and we bought, I think, 8. And they are all but one are still on the road, and so they've got a lot of mileage and a lot of use behind them. But what we need to do is have a plan to refresh the white fleet. And so the first step tonight is what we're bringing to you. We have tried to stick with state contract for pricing because it's the best and most competitive pricing. And also, when you're looking at fleet vehicles, you're looking at base vehicles. You're not looking at anything with a lot of options on it. So I'm going to talk through that real quick as well. There is one service vehicle, a heavy service truck, that you approved last December, and it was ordered with state contract pricing through Volume Chevrolet. That vehicle is just now being manufactured. It was scheduled for a 2-month manufacture, and then the pandemic hit, and everything got shut down. So I just got an email this week that we might see that vehicle around the end of November. I think we'll be 5 days short of when you approved it and we did the purchase order. So, we've had to factor that in too, because we have gone a whole year with one heavy service truck that we don't have. The other 3 vehicles that we're looking at, there's a transportation truck, a school-level Ranger. I told you there was one Ranger that was not operational anymore. And then we had a service van that one of our maintenance folks was using. Actually, Mr. Poole drove it, and Mr. Scarborough drove it, and it is out. It is gone. So what we are bringing you tonight on White Fleet is a plan to buy 3 additional vehicles, knowing that we've got one that we'll see in the next month or so. And so, if you'll look at the spec sheets that says recommendations for white fleet and yellow fleet, because we're going to talk about buses in a minute. So, state contract price for Ford F-150, that's the lighter duty truck, $21,080, with delivery at the end of the year or very early in January. The state contract price for a 250, which is a little heavier truck, is $33,000. You do have to put the service body on it to match it, and that delivery is in February. So as we talked through this, Mr. Davis found out that the holder of the state contract, Allen Vigil Ford, has an in-stock F-250 sitting on the lot, ready to go with just the addition of the service body. And it's about $2,200 more than what that state price. It's got a few options that normally we wouldn't ask for. We're talking power windows, power mirrors, a bumper that is different than what we would spec out. So, based on this, and this is probably a month and a half of work that we've done on this, we're recommending for White Fleet the purchase of 2 F-150s, which would need to be ordered for about a 2-month delivery at $21,000 each, and the in-stock F-250 that we can get within about 3 weeks. And that's a price of $35,570.
And that's the reason we're doing that, we need the truck.
Yes.
You said one will go to transportation department, one is the school, and then one is the service.
Well, and again, part of that refresh is Mr. Onstott, Mr. Davis, Mr. Campbell are going to work together to see what moves need to be made. Not all schools use the truck to the same extent. High school uses theirs a lot heavier than the elementary school. So there may be some shifting around with some of the trucks, but we're going to make the best use, get back up to 19. And then here, the next step is going to be that in the next month or two at a board meeting, we're going to bring to you that long-term plan to do 3 or 4 trucks a year, and to have a plan for that, both for funding them and for how they would be replaced. So, good time. Now, I'm not the one to ask a lot of mechanical questions, but I do have Mr. Davis and Mr. Campbell and then Mr. Onsites here if y'all have questions about kind of how we got here.
Well, I make a motion that we approve purchase of the 2 F-150s and the in-stock F-250 using East West filters.
I got a motion on the recommendation regarding purchase of the white fleet. Do I hear a second?
I second that motion.
Okay. All right. Got a motion second. Any discussion, questions?
Talking about 3 vehicles in addition to what we've already approved that, correct?
State contract price is a good price.
Yeah.
It is.
Those trucks aren't cheap.
No.
That one visual is a good price too.
Yes.
And the 150s will come through Allen Vigil also. Again, they hold the state contract, so.
And most of the trucks we have are 2007 Rangers. And,
Mr. Davis,
that's, right now, that's getting to be, used to be a 14-year-old truck.
Yeah, so the average year of our vehicle fleet, our white vehicle fleet right now is 2007. So that's both the average, and if you look at all of our vehicles, that's the median of our vehicles. So our vehicles are certainly aging, and I think it's time for us to look at trying to get caught back up on that.
And doing it this way, we don't have to purchase everything at one time. We can, and that way, when you bought on the 07, that's why they're all shut down right now, probably.
Yeah, and we're seeing an increase in maintenance costs and things like that, trying to keep the older vehicles on the road.
The side body's been used for facilities maintenance? Or the side body that you're getting, is that for facilities maintenance?
This one will be for transportation. Our main service vehicle is one of the ones that the engine went bad in. So this will be a service body truck that we can use to put our air compressor tools that we can use to make roadside repairs.
I take it we got plenty of money in these lots to do with.
Yep.
Okay.
Money's in the bank. One of y'all that has to decide who gets the power windows and whatever all these extras are. They're gonna be the one we didn't have ordered for a year.
And then what, do we have the little Rangers, they were all,
Yeah.
they still working too, probably.
7 V8 are still on the road.
I think we need to name that Billy Ray's truck.
You know, Billy Ray was a Chevrolet man.
That makes it better.
They don't even make a Ranger like the ones we got anymore. We don't, they must be like a bigger truck.
Mr. Davis never 100% forgave me for putting him in the pool.
Well, good, but I'll compromise. All right, we got a motion and second, no further discussion. All in favor of purchasing the white fleet, the 3 trucks is recommendation, signify by raising your hand. And would that include you, Mr. Evans? Okay, thank you, sir. Motion, Dr. Dolster, excuse me, was that you, who made the motion?
Me.
Okay, Dr. Dolster, seconded by Ms. Pettigrew. And it is unanimous. Okay, all right, thank you, sir.
Okay, I tell Mr. Davis to stay close because we're going to move to the other color vehicle we have, the yellow fleet. And so, again, going back to state contract, basically there are 2 providers, Bluebird, Thomas Straightline. And so we are looking at 72 passenger, which is just a conventional regular bus, most of what you see on the road. And then a special needs bus that ends up being, and I had to ask this question, it's a 60 passenger, but by the time you take seats out, put wheelchair stations in them, they become less than 60 passenger, but the bus is made for 60. And so the good news is we have earned 2 buses from state funding, state line funding. So we're building those into this. And then we decided now, to be honest with you, we probably need 6 or 8. But we're looking at 4 regular buses and 1 sped bus this year. Again, with that plan to come back with a refresh to keep track of them. We spec this year a gasoline engine, which is a little bit different than what we have been doing, and that kind of limits the choices to Bluebird because they're the only ones with gasoline. And so you see the prices there. Bluebird is at $90,000 for a 72-passenger bus. And for the sped bus that does have to be manufactured, it's $106,000. So by the time they make the modifications, put the wheelchair lift on it, it tops $100,000. So we're bringing this proposal to you tonight for 4 $90,000 buses, 72-passenger, 1 sped bus. It's a total of $466,000, but then credit back the bond funding that we're getting from the state, $154,000. And so we're looking at total expense of just over $300,000 for these buses.
Well, Jake did a good job of explaining to me about gas versus diesel. Can you just explain to them real quick the reason that we've got, most of our fleet is diesel, so I'll let Jake just explain, I was wondering about that, and I think we need to make sure that you understand why we're kind of moving in a different direction away from diesel right now.
Right. So, right now we have 4 gasoline-powered school buses in our fleet, and all 4 of them are smaller buses. A couple of years ago, we did buy 1 gasoline-powered Bluebird bus that was a special needs, and it has been very good for us. The main reason that we're looking at trying to transition away from diesel, at least somewhat, is, as some of you probably know, the EPA restrictions on diesel engines and on emissions for engines in general has become more and more strict over the years. And as a result of that, engine manufacturers have had to develop exhaust emissions reduction systems that are very complex, they're very costly, and they're very costly to maintain, difficult to diagnose sometimes, and creates breakdowns and things like that. So we really want to, and just to put it in perspective, an exhaust system on a school bus, one of the new ones that you might get, Cummins diesel engine, the exhaust system costs about $5,000 to replace, if you have to replace it. And sometimes something happens and you have to replace it. So that's just a simple example where the gasoline would not be nearly that costly. But they're simpler to maintain, parts are more affordable, less downtime with the emission systems, and it's a proven reliable engine. Fuel is cheaper. They don't get as good a fuel mileage, but it's not as far off as you might think. But we're excited to try them out. Several other districts around us are also starting to buy gasoline buses, and we think that's the right way to go.
What's the price difference in the diesel versus the gasoline?
It's about $3,000. About $3,000. It'd be an upfront cost. $3,000 less for the gasoline.
I've got a great deal in the trucking business. I don't own them, but I deal with people that own truck. The emission systems are not only costly, they can really take time away from you being on the road too.
Absolutely.
The regen systems are constantly have to be recalibrated and all that.
Diesel engines these days have to have diesel exhaust fluid, also known as DEF, added to them, and that's used in the exhaust system to help make it cleaner, basically. And so obviously these buses being gasoline buses, that's one less fluid that they'll have to have. Diesel engines normally have 20 to 30 quarts of oil. So when you do an oil change, it takes 30 quarts to refill it versus a gasoline engine, which might take 7 quarts. So there's other savings mixed in there too that you can get, especially from the maintenance side. Cost of the engine, a diesel engine might be $15,000 to $20,000 to replace versus a gas engine that might be 8 to 10.
What make engines, just out of curiosity?
It's a Ford V10.
You think that's why it failed?
No comment. Ford V10 has been around for a long time. They're actually getting ready to transition it out and replace it with a V8 engine. But the V10 has been around for, I think, probably around 20 years at least, in some shape or form.
Jake, I've asked you this before, this depends on the actual vehicle, but what is generally the lifespan of a bus? What would you look to get out of any bus? Like, if we buy that, we're looking at a normal life.
Well, I think, what you will look at probably, and it depends on the type of bus. You know, you've got different types of bus. A type A bus, which is a small bus, usually 8 to 10 years would be what you would read about, lifespan on that. Now, a larger bus would be something more like 12 to 15. Of course, many districts are on much longer than 15 years, but once you get beyond that 15-year mark, things really start being a lot. You're having to make repairs to things that should last the lifetime of the vehicle, and it really becomes costly at that point.
This is why I told him to stay up here. Thank you, Jay. And I'll just remind you, he started his career in a bus garage, started Reaches. That's how he's come through.
Funny you didn't dress like that.
I actually looked twice to see who he was when he came in.
This is not very often I do this, so.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Well, we had it on White Lake. Okay, Mr. Evans, we're about to vote on the bus purchase, and just give you a heads up, we got a motion. Ms. Silverback, that we follow recommendation of purchasing the total 5 buses is recommended, yes. And second by Dr. Gulster. Any discussion, any question?
Chris says we got money for it, so.
All right, there being no further questions, all in favor, signify by raising your hand. And Mr. Evans, are you in favor of purchasing the bus? All right, Mr. Evans also, so that makes it unanimous. All right, thanks, thank you, very good.
These all come with air conditioning, is that what you think they are?
Well, so about half of our fleet now has air. I think it's about half.
Yes, we're 48% to be exact.
All right, Mr. Johnson.
And that information is also, I'll pull it up a little bit. If it was scanned in, that was a little quick on your screen in front of you, but you do have it real quick.
All right. If you look at the September general fund, there's a few things that will look out of kilter percentage-wise, but if you look at the dollar amount, it's not very much money. Some of the expenses that cause these percentages to look high or one-time-a-year expenses, renewals of different software licenses, different maintenance agreements that we have that we pay once a year. So that's why some of these percentages look out of place.
And usually that comes due July 1st.
Yes, sir.
That's fine.
A lot of them are dated July 1, because that's our fiscal year, so that's when they come due. So a lot of this stuff is just renewals that we do every year. I was looking at the 2,800 support. That budget amount is really 2 items. One is our SACS dues, and that expense is all our SACS dues. The remaining budget amount is our RESA dues, and they're now billing us only twice a year. I just received our first bill for the RESA membership, so next month, that percentage may jump up even higher, but as the year progresses, the percentage will come down. On the next page is our capital projects. Mr. Head had asked if we had money in the bank for the fleet. This month, when I looked at our SPOS revenue, I actually did a double take. And at first I thought, this can't be right, in a good way. But then after analyzing the printout from the Department of Revenue, they had an adjustment of over $200,000 to our good. So not only did we get our normal 425,000, we added another over 200,000. So we got almost $650,000 for September in SPOS revenue.
We've been pretty constant with that 400 to 425 with E-SPOS. Each month, that even through pandemic, I mean.
It has remained fairly constant, which when the pandemic hit, I was a little concerned about our SPOS. It did dip a little bit for a month or so, but it came right back. So we have a little over $1 million in our SPOS available. Now, we have more money than that, but every month, I quote-unquote escrow some money to make our bond payment. And we have a $2 million bond payment every year that has to be paid out of SPOS. So I have a spreadsheet where I keep up with X amount of dollars every month that comes out of that revenue that is kind of put aside, that's non-spendable. But the money we have after that, we have plenty to pay for those buses and the bike fleet. Also, if you look further down that page, you see our federal funds. A lot of our federal grants are now being approved and entered into the system. So those things will be reflected in these numbers. So just for your information, that's our Title I, Title VI money, our SPED money, and school food. And so that's about all I've got, unless y'all have any questions.
Just keep that $200,000.
Yeah.
Is that some adjustment on the Georgia Power deal a couple of years back, or do we not know?
We don't really know, and
I did hear a news story, and they said there were some pretty heavy adjustments with a calculation that was done, and it was across all business. It wasn't just utility. So, where something was being undercalculated, and they had to go back and correct it.
You know, a question about E-SPOS, you know, when we wrote that E-SPOS, and voted on, there is a cap. I think it's like 23.5.
I was thinking 24.
24. So what I'm saying is, you have to be careful with that, because you can see where us growing as a county and getting actually more revenue, we have to be careful to know where it will stop, because there's a maximum amount. So we can get more per month, and it would actually go above that 24 million, but that's as much as you can get. That was what was voted on by taxpayers, to actually, not to exceed that cap amount.
Correct. And I keep up with that, I keep a running total. If we were to get, like we were going to hit that cap,
Right.
I will let y'all know, and you can go ahead and approve another referendum, get it before the voters, and just continue the SPOS. Just because we hit that cap doesn't mean we have to wait a certain time. We can continue it with voter.
The voters approved that amount, really,
Yes.
at the end of the day. Equal to a million.
Yes.
When are they supposed to shut down water Georgia?
A couple of years on the, unit 4, what is it?
It's a little ways out. It's a little ways out.
Yeah, not the rest of the last year report, but it's connected with finances. I had a school parent ask me, was it true, they had heard that the no-cost breakfast and lunches were going to be extended to the end of the school year, not just the end of the calendar year.
True.
We've heard that, but
It's true.
No, it's done.
It's done. We said that out today. It should be getting a phone call, so our kids will bring them to face-to-face.
Parents will be getting a phone call, or we'll go out in about 10 minutes.
So the rest of us.
Somebody had heard it earlier today and called and said, is this true? I said, I don't know, I'll find out tonight.
See, I did it Facebook every lunch
Lunches and breakfasts is not everything.
Yep.
and for face-to-face and virtual. So they can do the pickups we do them all year like we did in summer.
That's right.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks for it.
All right, public report.
All right, let's see, you should have in there, I didn't print off the whole report, the summary, but I did want to mention that, if you look what's in your notebook, I was encouraged, you know, I always like to look at, if you look with me, where that 142 current 14-day incident rate, and if you look off to the right, it says the incident rate of COVID-19 for Monroe County residents from the current 2-week period was 142 per 100,000. And then that N number actually represents the total number of cases, which was 39. That's wonderful. And then the previous 2-week incident rate was 240, which actually represented 66 cases. So that was good. I mean, we weren't in school, but I mean, we're not, most of, generally, I think, I don't know that we're the seed of it. I think people bring it, you know what I'm saying? So that's good news for us as a whole county. And I think, hopefully everything's going well with, I visited the middle school. We got more kids back. April said that we added about 50 kids that have been,
How many classes do we have to?
we got, the elementaries in the middle gained kids.
Kindergarten.
Like at Hubbard, they had to take one of the online teachers and add them back. And so we're seeing that a little bit. The only one that doesn't go that route is probably the high school. They're not as many coming back, but Jake can attest, all those that came back, it's like we had to do redo routes like the first day of school, because when they came back, we had to put all those children that were bus riders, add those to the existing routes or create new routes. And so we're glad to be able to do that. But this number looks better, and I think hopefully Georgia has, if you've paid attention nationally, we've slowed down. We've turned, we started out, we had that red early in the spring, summer, right after Memorial Day-ish, and then came down and went back up, and this looks a lot better. I feel a lot better about it. I think teaching staff was all back healthy. We didn't have very many that were being exposed or sick, so I've been paying attention to that on the absentee report every day that we get from ASOP. We didn't have it. Monday we had 17 total out the whole district with about 600 employees. That was real good.
I think it's the right decision. That's have the middle school go.
Well, I hope so. I mean, at the end of the day, it had to do with the teaching staff, and then we're bringing some substitutes to you tonight for approval to give us some more to try to help when we have teachers go out. And then, that's going to happen, and there's not a whole lot you can do about that. But,
Could you give us a number? I mean, you probably don't have it at hand tonight, but could you give us a number of how many students at that deadline to opt, go back, how many did come back?
I can give you, I can find that exact number, but I can tell you, when we figured out the online option, we were still around 25 to 26% of kids in the system that were online. Right now, when we redid the number, it's 21.
Okay.
So you can basically figure it out.
200 kids.
Yeah, probably. And so Lucia keeps up with that. Each week, we try to keep up with how many kids are moving in, and we actually mark them in Infinite Campus so we can run a report at any time and know who's online or face-to-face. And there's been a lot of changes, and remember we added the ability for kids that had, underlying conditions with them or family members. Obviously, we were working with those families too, so we've had some to go out after we actually started. which we were gonna have to do. We try not to bring them back, that makes what we separate the class, except at the times we want them back, because if you bring them back and then you got the classroom set up for spacing, it makes it very difficult. But we try to work with families, and I think overall that we've done pretty good with that. And I think we're gonna see this until, we're gonna see changes of mind, and it just depends on what's happening statewide.
That's encouraging, that many came back.
Yeah, a lot of them came back. Well, I think from talking to some mamas and daddies, and talking to me, that they were ready for them to come back.
That new appreciation of teachers.
Yes. I was talking to Dr. Nooks, this president of the board, and had a Zoom meeting with him today, and his kids came back, and he was talking, we were talking about how difficult it was for he and his wife to do that and to oversee that for elementary children. And he said he said, we're educators. And it was so difficult for us to do that. So he was glad to bring those children to Hubbard on Monday morning. So we were glad to have them back. We were always glad to see them. Ms. Deb, you want to come up and kind of go over that chart we send out each week with our internal numbers?
I'll be glad to.
All right, this is the information from the second chart that you guys have a copy. This is updated after Tuesday, October the 6th, and of course we had fall break last week. From a total of 4,211 students enrolled in Monroe County schools, with 2,350 that are face-to-face. Basically, since this time period, we had an increase of 6 exposures. 1 from a staff member, and then 5 from students. Some of these happen the end of the week prior to going out to fall break, and then some afterwards. But all 6 of these individuals are currently quarantined because of their exposure.
And something you mentioned to y'all that I learned at the superintendent's conference I went to this past week, a lot of school systems are seeing drops in their FTE numbers. Their enrollment numbers are going down, and I am very happy that ours is staying pretty good, kind of creeping up at 4211. A lot of the superintendents were talking about they were seeing like 8-10% reductions. I think Mark Scott and Houston said they had, it was 600 to 800 kids that they don't have, that they had before, and that's a lot of money. And so part of what we were kind of lobbying the legislators, and it's about maybe holding firm with the numbers that they had until the pandemic is over, so everybody can kind of get back to normal. I think some people are just at home. I mean, now we went out and tried to get ours, get them either online or face-to-face, but some have just pulled back on education and are just somewhere. And we're seeing a lot of that across the state. So just be aware of that, board members. We don't necessarily, our numbers are actually more than they were last year. So we're going to we have so many, I don't know if y'all are around the county, we have so many houses going up everywhere. It's unbelievable. At some point, I mean, it's if you just get out on a Sunday night that the gas prices are a little better than they've been, and take that Sunday drive, you're just going to see a lot of growth. So I suspect that number will continue to go up, and that's good for Monroe County. Any questions? Anything about COVID?
Thank you, Ms. Davis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Got discussion of the driveway.
All right. That was one more item. So back on September 8th, we brought to you the plan to make some improvements for safety purposes to the driveway at KB Sutton Elementary School on Highway 83 North, basically to move that turn lane over a little bit, give a little better visibility, to work with the DOT, work with the engineer. So based on your approval back in September, we advertised for 4 weeks in the newspaper and received proposals. We had 6 contractors request bid packages and 3 submitted. And so they've been reviewed by the engineer for qualifications, requirements, and pricing. And so there's a letter in your package that we are recommending the bid that met all, or the proposal that met all of the qualifications, and it just so happens to also be the low bid, Sellers Contracting at $243,200.
And they did the work out here, fireworks behind that paving out here.
That's correct.
The fireworks and.
Mr. Onstott's here, if he needs him to add anything into what I've said, or if you have any questions about the project as a whole, but we're ready to go.
What were the quotes of the other two bids?
Mr. Onstott, do you?
They were about $150,000 more than
It
Sellers.
was a way of on.
Considerably more.
And describing that, both of them were within a few $100s of each other.
They were very close, yes,
Were
sir.
they local?
Were they local, Mr. Onstott?
Who were they?
Apton Brothers and, a company out of Noonan, I believe, Fritch or something along those lines.
Helix?
Helix, I'm sorry.
Okay. We hope, with your approval, that we can get this project started mid to late November, and depending on weather, 3 to 4 months. Get the work done. Won't interrupt school. We're going to make some provisions to, work with Sheriff's Department, the DOT, with traffic control if that's needed, and let some of the folks in that area know what we're doing.
And I told Jackson we'd reach out to, if we needed to some of the people that in that area and let them know what we're
Have a plan for that. So our recommendation would be that we accept the proposal from Sellers.
Where's this money coming from?
This is coming from East Was.
We just approved this and this, and now we're going to approve spend
We
this.
would have brought this to you in September if we didn't have the money then, so.
I'm going to approve the bid from Sellers Contracting Company.
I've got a motion, we approve the recommendation that we accept the bid for the entrance work at KB Sutton from Sellers Construction. Okay, motion by Dr. Russell, second by Mr. Piven. Any questions, any comments?
Upon approval of this, I think as far as our next contractors for when we're getting bids and stuff, I'd like to have a lot better, kind of the bid process put together a little better, as far as
I think the bid process is fairly complicated, it just doesn't make it to here. And if you want to meet with,
What do you want to see? The bids?
yeah, the bids and things that we come, because we're supposed to be approving these, it's our decision to do this. So without having all these other bids and other quotes and things like that, I'd like to see that, because it's our job to look at that and be informed on these bids before we say, yeah, let's just spend this money and do this. And granted, I know we're going with the lowest bidder, but as we've done before, lowest bidder isn't always the best quality.
That's why this bid was done, basically, it's a qualifications bid. It was not done on the basis of the bid just happened to be the lowest of the bid.
Right.
And it was qualifications based.
And also, we know these people because they.
We are familiar with Sellers Contracting, yes, sir.
Well, I'm familiar with them too, so what I'm getting at is, it's our job to have that and make an educated decision. So in the future, I'd like to see a little bit better on that.
Got it.
all right, I got the motion, have a second. All in favor of the accepting the bid based on the recommendation, signify by raising your hand. And Mr. Evans, would that include you? Okay, Mr. Evans.
Thank you.
Also in favor, so the motion passes unanimously. All right, next on the agenda, I'm juggling a lot here.
We're getting there.
We have the calendar.
Okay, if you would really go to SO3, which is the gateway loyalty, just kind of let you know where we are with the calendar, is the plan. So We plan to develop draft calendar options to present to you at our November meeting, and then once those draft options are approved by you, then typically we put those out for public input for the survey, and then we bring those results back, and then a final recommendation for the FY22 calendar in either December or January. Typically, we leave that for a 2-week period when we come back. I have met with 2 different stakeholder groups. I met with parents, then I met with staff, and some of the things that were kind of important to them. And I sent you guys one of the things that I do on calendar a lot. So when I just ask me, because I do it so much, I just know, like for first semesters, that's critical for us. Because basically you have to start from Christmas break and back up 90 days, okay? And you gotta find a way to get that in there. So I always look at what are the flexibilities that we could see or that were mentioned to me during my meeting. So the things that were mentioned to me was one, obviously trying to stay out of July, get into August at least, for students starting, at least having June and July as a summer time for children and staff. Remember, we're 10 fewer days, starting on the 17th, we only have 180. I only have 80. One of the things that was mentioned by the staff, we went away, we started on Monday this year. And our teachers, elementary especially, seem to like the ability for those children to come in on Friday, get to know everybody, get to know teachers, get to know the routines on that day, and then come back Monday kind of trying to get down to the nitty-gritty of the work. And so I'll probably provide an option with a Friday start, then maybe one with a Monday start. Now, do y'all feel, y'all need thought on that?
I'd be clear and not go.
There's an argument for both sides on that one.
We thought maybe it was the the teachers mentioned it to me. I don't have to not mention it to me.
I think high schoolers and things like that, starting on Mondays, I mean, it's good, but, yeah, I can see where elementary helps.
And,
It's been, she said over 50 years, 20 years. That we started on, our first day classes on Friday, because it just,
it used to be part of the state code that allowed you extra days for like when you had severe weather, but we have a waiver for that, so we don't have to worry about that anymore.
And also, we give some time for balancing classes if you have a big influx of people.
Yeah, and
we start on Monday.
And so, just so y'all understand what, the block schedule is working very good from high school. It's a good idea. It allows our kids with technical college and doing a little bit perfectly. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't fit with us starting a little later. Because what would happen, either you do less days or then you have to take the semester on into January, which you could do, but typically, I don't think the teachers, students would like to take those exams on Friday. They have to take in the course instead of doing it in December. They probably have to do it when we come back. There'll be a lot of lost time when they go to Christmas break. That's the most difficult thing about the calendar for us right now is the blocks.
I mean, Judy probably remembers from Butler County. I remember Butler County, one time we did that and it was a headache.
It was just started after Labor Day in North Carolina.
I know.
So it's always on a Tuesday, you never know.
You know what it is, don't you? That's a good idea.
It's always on a Tuesday.
The other thing that came up for first semester, obviously, is fall break. Because we typically do a week at Thanksgiving, and then we do Christmas. We try to give at least 4 or 5 days before Christmas Day, depending on when that falls. And so, Alicia, you don't have to get me here. The staff people we met with, and the teachers we talked to in the Zoom meeting, they like the full week, but mamas and daddies likes the Friday and Monday. So,
Christmas
oh, right, they don't like the whole week. They don't like the whole week. The ones we spoke to, we had 41 So we're split about 22 each of those meetings. So what we figured was we're gonna have to provide an option with a full week, and we'll do the option of a full week on the fair week.
And their opinion may have been skewed a little bit by having the kids at home.
True.
Don't we do a week for Thanksgiving?
Yes. Yes, and we tried to do a Thanksgiving break a couple of years ago when that hurricane came through, and they're like, man, that's awful, yeah.
All the parents don't, all the parents hate their kids, no ones, they want them to swear.
I don't know, they just felt like it was, they just felt it was enough for like a Friday, Monday, a 4-day weekend, and not have to have, if you don't do the full week, you can afford to start a little bit more. I mean, it's 3 days, but it's 3 days,
Thursday,
you know? Well, can we let two people do it on the week of the fair, so that people, if they want to do that, they can do that. We can do that. We can probably provide either a Friday, Monday, and then a week, I mean, should that probably be a good.
Friday, Monday, or Thursday?
Do both, because we do 3 options, we can do one of each. A Friday, Monday, a Thursday, Friday, and a full week.
I like the week.
Or you can, that thing for equal pay on Thursday, Friday, Monday.
well, I didn't say anything, but.
You can do that too. So a 2 or 3 and a 5.
Oh, go ahead, throw it forward.
Yeah, so,
But I think they were thinking more of a 2 and a 5, like a Friday, Monday, Thursday, Friday. That would be good. So that's first semester thoughts. Second semester, basically, in our calendar, we have 10 days we have to build in of professional learning days. So teachers work 190 days, kids come 180 days. So typically, teachers, they like about 4 days worth of pre-planning is about right to get them ready. Anything more is too much, anything less is not enough, and they're very, I see thinking that, that's about where we're at, okay? So we got 6 days, and lately we've been doing 2 at post-planning, so we do 4 at the beginning, 2 at the end. We have 4 days that we try to insert at times during the year to maximize professional learning. And typically, we either done a day or 2 days after first semester when we come back. Because typically we'll have a day for them to get back and finalize grades and things at the middle high. And then we have a system-wide professional learning day where we do whatever we have for professional learning on that day, or curriculum divisions, or whatever we choose, but we do one day that's a system-wide day. So we can do 1 or 2 days there, and then if you do that to the 6, that's 8, and there's 2 more that we can put. And typically, the problem with first semester, when you insert one, it's going to back your days up. So a lot of times, we're doing a lot of the PL days in second semester. We've got more flexibility in second semester. So we're actually thinking about one of the options before we do our spring break, to be out on, either be out on Good Friday or just have a PL day on Good Friday. That way the kids would actually get out early. So they'd be off that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the whole week for spring break. So we might provide an option there. And then basically, maybe we love to be able to provide, and that typically is around the 9-week mark too, so that's a good time to have that. We'd love to be able to provide something first semester around 9 weeks time, but we'll try to maybe do one of the options that has that. But I'm just telling you, it's hard on first semester. It's difficult. So you start doing a week long, and then you're trying to, week-long fall break, and then you're trying to put a PL thing in there. It may back you up in a July start with kids, and I know y'all don't want that.
You don't.
So I have to be careful, and when I share those, once I get them develop some options, I'll just go ahead and share them with y'all and kind of take a peek at them before we come to vote on them. And you may have some, brainstorms too.
Let's just do 175 days.
We could. But now,
In that lane,
It is weight, but now you do have to determine whether, are we going to do in-service for those days now? Just some ideas. People like, I talked to superintendents, like Pike County, they got 20 days of PL, and they go 180, 170 days. I've just always been, there's a fine line there. I don't know what the happy line is. I think when we get kids in front of teachers, the more they learn, that's what they're here for. But there are times in which, this year, I think the 10 days were really good for us to actually get prepared. But the money was showing all the money. But it's an option. I don't know that we need to use it out of necessity more than convenient. Yeah.
I think you might want to consider, if you didn't do a full week in fall,
Yeah.
I could do a 3-day, you put a professional learning day, it's adjacent to one of those, they give you kids.
True. And that may be the way to do it, because typically our teachers like a tolerant at 9 week, especially middle and high for, I could probably try to figure that out. It's just, I know the more that I've done this, it will start backing us up into July with student days, and we don't want that. We can do our in-service days in July, but typically we want our kids to start in August. So, but I'll send those to y'all to look. I'll send them to you to look, and you're welcome to work with them every how you like. And then before we put our I love doing it, but I know now I just know it's like an accordion. Whichever way you go, it's going out that way. It doesn't matter.
Friday's in August, there are 6 and 13,
Okay.
or Monday on the
All right, I will share these and then we will get them, bring those to a recommendation for probably 3 options. I hate to send too many out there because of this guy get credit. Three's we've always done 3. So. All right.
All right.
Nothing to approve there, just want you to know what's happening.
You got, Ms. Owens? You on deck?
I wanted to spend some time to discuss our onboarding and our onboarding process for the school system. I want to start off by saying study after study shows us that teacher quality is the greatest contributor to academic achievement in the classroom. Effective teachers, staff build relationships and motivate students so that they want to come to school and learn. For this reason, staff recruitment and retention are critical functions within a school. So we're going to start off talking about what is onboarding. And onboarding is a process that our new employees go through when they acquire knowledge, skills, and behaviors needed to perform their jobs effectively. It's not a one-time event. Instead, it's a series of events that help an employee understand what it takes to be successful in their jobs and roles so that they can help us meet our goals. A supported and well-trained employee can make the difference between someone staying or leaving the district or profession within the first 5 years. So the next slide shows you, it's a picture that captures our onboarding process in 5 steps or stages. So we have recruitment, then we have our induction, which is our new teacher induction program. We have a mentorship, we coach along the way, and then we have continuous learning that occurs, or professional learning that occurs. That's our process. So for phase 1, which is recruitment, that's where it all begins. First impressions count. So it's important that the attraction and selection process makes a new employee feel like they're making a great career decision. So during this phase, there are several steps that the applicant or candidate goes through before they are hired. So that's why we have recruitment fairs. Our school administrators have a chance to meet and talk to potential candidates for employment because we all know competition for good people can be fierce. Candidates are required to complete and submit an application through AppleTrack and Teach Georgia. Those applications are reviewed and screened by the school's administration to determine those candidates for an interview. Then those interviews are conducted by a team as they dig deeper to test a candidate's suitability for a particular position. The big question is, will that particular candidate fit in the culture of the school and our school system? That's the big question. So after the candidate is selected to be hired to fill the vacancy, references and credentials are verified and a background check is conducted prior to board approval. After the board votes to approve the new hire, the employee signs their contract, attends new employee benefit sessions. In those sessions, we hold over the summer where we provide them with insurance and financial options to meet their needs as an employee. So all of those things happen during phase one, and that's a critical phase with the onboarding process. In phase two, this is where we have our new teacher induction or orientation process. This is a critical event in the onboarding journey. It usually takes place over a 1 to 2 week period. For us, it's 5 days. New teacher orientation encompasses 3 days of our teacher induction program and then 2 days of best practices. And also our paraprofessionals get to join in with our new teacher induction program for those 3 days.
That's important. Lots of systems don't include their paraprofessionals, and we have them included in all of our training.
What's so great about our school system is that our administrators and some of our lead teachers actually conduct TIP. So they're learning from us. We focus on acclimating new staff to our culture, and we talk about our vision and mission and guiding principles. We want to make sure we spell out our common expectations and instructional practices. We want our staff to be given a roadmap or a pathway for role-specific learning and training for the classroom experience they are about to embark upon. Then for phase 3, this is about social integration and connecting our new staff with the right people so they are set up for success. This is our mentorship program. So happy employees are more efficient, they're more productive, and more loyal, which is why we focus on connecting staff members with others. We do this by scheduling school-level PBIS activities and events. We conduct new staff meetings with the superintendent to gain feedback and clarity on their experiences. And we assign new teachers a mentor, and they meet regularly to complete a list of job-related tasks together. So they have someone right beside them their entire year. They help answer questions. They just
And they have that
listen to
person
you.
that is not only evaluated, that they can kind of vent a little bit, and somebody that can listen to their concerns.
And in some schools, they also pair some paraprofessionals too with a buddy or someone to help them. They're not really in the mentorship program because they're not a certified teacher, but they do work with new parapros as well to acclimate them. And then in phase 4, this is where we do we immerse the staff member into our culture, and we provide lots of coaching. Learning by doing is the most effective way to learn, so that's why we use high-impact practices and techniques to immerse and coach our new staff. Whether we are supporting a teacher brand new to the profession or one that is experienced, our instructional coaches, our district and school administration and lead teachers are there to support and enrich new staff in their onboarding journey. So we spend a lot of time in training to make sure that our teachers are prepared for our culture and our expectations. When our staff members are trained based upon our expectations, they make better decisions to support teaching and learning. And as a district, we schedule system-wide trainings and focus walks. Specifically, we focus on literacy strategies, assessment strategies, specially designed instruction, which is for our special needs students and our at-risk population. We focus on technology, like you heard with Mr. Shipman, PBIS, and mental health awareness. Those are some of our areas of focus with professional learning. Each school and grade level, they also hold meetings and trainings based upon student data and the needs of staff. And as you all know, ensuring quality professional learning is one of our 4 strategic objectives that we build action steps upon each year. We believe high-quality professional learning is the foundation for attaining high student achievement and success. And then our last phase, we can call that our continuous learning phase. This is where the retention of new staff would come in. Once new teachers and paraprofessionals have the knowledge and confidence to perform their jobs independently, they will then use the support to complete their jobs more efficiently and effectively. So they begin to shift to a more self-directed learning approach. So during this phase, our staff development goals are pushed out, And actually, our staff create goals that will help them improve professionally and to advance in the profession. Sometimes they seek advanced degrees or want to obtain an endorsement for their certification. Retention is the result of a strong onboarding program. When staff members feel supported and can grow professionally in a positive work environment, they are more likely to remain on your staff. In our district, we actually monitor the retention rates of our new certified staff members over a 3-year period, and we report this information on our balanced scorecards. Our target is to maintain an 80% or higher 3-year retention rate for new staff. And if a school falls below that target, then we help them create action steps for improvement in that area. So we have those retention rates posted on our balanced scorecards from last school year. And as a district, our yearly retention rate hovers around 85 to 86%.
That's really good. Really good.
So, I mean, we know and believe the key to high achieving school district is because we have to retain a talented workforce. And I think we're doing a really good job of that.
And the support staff, and anybody that's not a teacher or paraprofessional is support staff. Let me remind everybody, and that includes me, and most of the people that spoke to you tonight, and everybody that is in those support roles should be supporting teaching and learning in the classroom. If not, something's wrong. And so we're committed to do that. And that's why we're in the classrooms as much as we can. Not as much as we should because of COVID, but we are there, and I'll remind myself every day that's why we are support. I was a teacher, but since then, we're support staff, and we're here to support our teachers and our kids.
And we actually keep up with that in a weekly database that we plug in every time we visit a school. So we know exactly where we've been, where we haven't been in a week. Any questions, comments?
Thank you.
All right, we do have a need for executive session, and I understand it is for land acquisition.
Personnel, land acquisition, and litigation.
I'm sorry, I was talking to this. All right. Anyhow, do I hear a motion to go into executive session for the aforementioned? Motion by Ms. Pettigrew, second by Dr. Dawson. All in favor, signify by raising your hand. And y'all excuse me for a minute.
That's everyone to step out. We'll be back out of executive session, probably 20 minutes-ish.